Life Imprints podcast, legacy stories that live beyond. Turn up the volume on today's riveting story with your host, Kenny Mauck, at kennymauck.com, and leave your life imprint with your legacy story.
At our podcast this afternoon, I'm meeting with a wonderful friend. He's just, we met actually in 1995. Oh, did I really say that? And Tim took the whole afternoon off, not knowing who I was. He just said, okay, yeah. I called him out of the blue and just said, I want to meet this guy. I'm the director of counseling at a big mega church. I don't know all the ropes. I want to go talk to somebody who's been around doing this for a while. Tim took his afternoon off, showed me around there at Forest. I believe that's the name of the town he's in, and his wonderful counseling staff there, and then showed me the wonderful Liberty University. I mean, and it just totally changed my whole perspective about, wow, this is how you should do life. You know, he really just opened up his heart, and we've been friends now for 23 years, I think. So before I officially let him get going here, though, I have something I got to share. People have been asking me about my book, Leaving Your Life Imprint, a legacy story that lives beyond one's lifetime. And I started this book out of kind of an interesting thing. I started with Ancestry.com about 3 years ago. And what's happened is I've learned more about my family, my story, and it's just like everybody's story is unique. But this story is pretty interesting because my great-grandfather, six-time great-grandfather, came over from Germany. I just got back from there, visited the place where he took off on a little boat, and he came to America, landed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, then comes down to Virginia, and that's where he starts his life. And here's the unique part. He gets on a boat that's rocking out in the ocean. They lose people die. He's alone. He's only got one ticket from his family, and he's the guy. This is my six-time great-grandfather. He leaves. He's the guy who gets the golden ticket. His parents can't come. He's on a boat with all these families. He's 25 years old. And I talk about that because I wouldn't be here today talking to Tim about you and about your legacy and what's going on had it not been from this wonderful man who I talk a little. That's my first chapter. And it's just amazing what has happened over the years of my family. And so I encourage everybody to get in deep and study your family, because Tim and I know what's about when you start thinking about family and why it's important to study about your family, because I've learned so much about myself. So having to say all that, I'm ready to now turn it over to my dear friend, Dr. Tim Clinton. He is the guy that if you want to know about counseling, he's the guy that if you want to improve your skills, he has the most amazing, I'm telling you, convention every year here in Nashville and other places where he's had it. And I tell you, it's attended by thousands of people. You learn if you're a counselor, pastor, you name it. If you want to care about people, you connect with this guy because he is off the chart, the best person you ever want to talk to. Tim, take it over.
Hi, Kenny. Great to be with you. Hey, the years are catching up to us. Maybe it's the mileage, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the mileage. Actually, I just came from a few moments with my granddaughter. We just had a grandbaby. Her name is Raye Ann, and my daughter Megan and her husband Ben. So I tell you, I just was holding her in my arms. She's only a couple of days old. And again, it's our first grandchild. So this is a whole new journey for us. But I'll tell you, she fell asleep in my arms. We were talking together right before she went to sleep. And you know what? I would say over the last few days, even my whole perspective on life and multi-generational flow. You talk about the significance of family, Kenny. I often talk about, and we learned this in our early days of marriage and family training, that families tend to reproduce themselves for good and bad. You know that. Absolutely. And so it's important that we learn and see and understand the significance of our own influence on on each other and how it really does affect us or infect us, I guess, and how
Yeah.
we do or how we don't do relationships with God and with others. But Kenny, just a beautiful moment.
Well, I think about what you're doing and what I'm doing and how God has brought us so far, Tim. I mean, he has done so much in your life. And it's having a new baby is when you think about when you first started at AACC, or you were the vice president, but you took it to charts that's never been before. You're now working with Dr. Dobson. I want to hear about that, and just kind of what's going on, because I mean, there's some exciting things going on for you this year that I'm really pumped. I'm going to come this year, the AACC conference. I am excited. I hear there's going to be some great things. So maybe you can just share us a little plug about what's going to go on.
Let me tell you a little bit, first of all, about the American Association of Christian Counselors, an organization designed primarily to influence those who influence other people. And it's distinctively Christian. Our goal is to be clinically excellent. We try to produce resources and services, events. For example, you're talking about our World Conference we do every other year in Nashville. We do a mega national conference in the off year. We're now starting new conferences in the church focused on mental health and the mission of the church. I really believe that the church is the platform to carry this message of hope and help. And if we can get inside the church at another level, another degree, I think it'll be a real gift, I think, to people who are out there searching for help and hope. I believe it. Kenny, I think people are hurting today more than ever before. I just think that there's so many issues. I think the pace, talk about the pain and the pressure of modern day life has taken over, and it gets assaultive in a lot of ways. And when you look at all the challenging issues that people are wrestling with, people are sticking their hand up and saying, help. Right. That really believe the church. They're coming to church often in droves looking for help. My prayer is that the church would respond and meet them at their point of need. There was always one, if you read the Bible pretty closely, who met people at their point of need. The church needs to be there to answer in this broken moment. If we don't, I think the people will move right on through the church, right out the other side, and continue to look down the street or wherever, or they'll start reaching for anything to medicate the brokenness, the hole in their soul, the pain that afflicts them. And so it's a beautiful moment to be able to step into this space. I think AACC really happened in a lot of ways simply because God ordained it. It was by chance. It was certainly nothing to do with us. I think there was a glaring need for someone to speak into this space, and I think people started rallying around it, and it's become kind of a fun platform to have influence. Well, you were like me though. I mean, there's ebb and flows in ministry, and you go through all that, ups and downs, and you look back and you go, wow, God, you've been through everything, every phase of our life, and all the challenges, the money that's needed to run an organization like yours. The people, resources that are needed, and you realize, wow, this is not just me. This is bigger than me. This is something that God intended, and I'm trying my best, to hang on to it. Like I didn't know we were going to have one of the larger community mental health centers in the country, with as a faith-based mental health center. But I took the risk. You took risk to hang in there, because I know organizations ebb and flow. But you take the risk. Mine was $600, and emptying out my entire savings account. My wife mad at me because I did it, but I made a promise to God, and I had a nice, cozy Christian counseling job of director of counseling, and then step out, with $600 and just saying, okay, God, we're gonna ride this through, and start with that, and realize that look what God has done. Hundreds of thousands of kids and families have been helped. But it didn't start that way. It started out in my kitchen, just putting dots on a piece of paper. And I look at your life and I realize you've done that multiple times. You've thought that next thought through and
how do we get to the next phase of life? And you, everybody you meet, you excite them. I know with me, it was that way. You encouraged me in a time that was really extremely important to me. And, you know, being an influencer, you've been an influencer in my life. And one of the things I want to know is, who's the influencers in your life? Who's the person, if you look back, Tim, and say, you know, when it's all said and done, I know this person has continued to beat on my heart. Not just the Lord, but this person God placed in my heart. Maybe sometimes that's a parent, sometimes that's a dear friend. But what is it? What are, if you could say, you know, what one or two influencers? Because there's people out there, they're wanting to be, you know, at a place where they can be influenced. But who was it for you?
You know, Kenny, in my life, my dad has always been that person for me, my hero. They say anyone can be a father. It takes somebody special to be a dad, and he was probably the kindest man I've ever met in my whole life. He was the one who called me almost every night, especially late in his life, just to chat and say how you doing, or to pray over the phone. I'd pick him up and we'd go for a ride in my truck, and often he just wanted to go through McDonald's and get a hot fudge sundae and add a few nuts to it, you know, and we just ride around and just talk. But he was so impressive to me because he had such a presence of the Lord about him, a tenderness toward the Lord always. When he would pray, he would be the person you would think, okay, if I'm in trouble, I'm going to call him and have him pray. I mean, and people who knew my dad, that's how they saw him. He never left a conversation where he didn't pray over you and for you. He always made you feel like you were the only person in the room. And he loved his kids dearly. He taught me the value of family. My dad, late in life, we had one of those conversations, you know, and those are painful ones, you know, when you realize that these are like those final moments together. I remember him saying to me, Tim, hear me. We were sitting in this restaurant in South Florida together. He said, hear me. It was a Smoky Bones restaurant. He said, Tim, my ministry started with my family. And he said, hear me. It's ending with my family.
Oh, wow.
He said, keep them centered. In my mind, that's your Judea. You know that? What's the scripture say? If you don't take care of the little ones in your life, you're worse than an infidel. Kenny, you hear what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
He's saying, Tim, this is that place that God has given you real influence over. Pour yourself in. Stay anchored there. I've tried, Kenny, in my life to make family a real priority for me. I've watched influencers like Dr. Dobson. I didn't have the opportunity to really know him closely early on in my career, but I got moments with him. I read a lot of his books, and it's a joy now to spend a lot of time with Dr. Dobson.
Wow.
And just to grow and watch him and hear from him. God gave me an opportunity to, well, let me go back to family just for a moment. My older brother, Jimmy, is like a second father to me. And he and I've been able to work together now for the last 15, almost 20 years. And he's that person who's always been a steady rudder in my life, constantly. Keeps me outside, keeps me active. He likes to lift weights. Let's get after it. Keeps me in the gym. But he's a rock too. I mean, his faith in Christ is so strong. He just keeps us all anchored, keeps me anchored. I can tell you that. And then just the whole relationship piece, Kenny, I've tried to keep in my life people who I thought were sensitive to the leading of the Lord. We put together a team, a little board of advisors around us, and it's been a joy to interact with them, to hear from and watch everybody kind of grow together. That kind of influence, I think, keeps you tender toward the Lord. I know what you're saying about getting out there and trying to make business decisions and take risks and have a dream and follow dreams. And I can tell you this, Kenny, we've seen mountaintops and we've seen a lot of valleys. We've made some great decisions, and I've made some horrible decisions. I've made some real mistakes along the way, painful ones that I had to learn from. But I've learned this, even in counseling with other people, if there's a tenderness in your heart toward the Lord, and it's like God and toward others, you keep yourself there, because that guides your decision making every step of the way.
Absolutely.
And I try to start my day in relationship with the Lord. I really do. I try to pray earnestly each day for my kids, my family. I try to pray earnestly that God would be sovereign and guide our steps every day in what we do, that I would not bring reproach on the Lord in any way. I mean, that's the earnestness of my heart. Yeah. And again, I come back and say this in humility. I'm not a saint. I have feet of clay. I try to surround myself with people here who have different gifts, and I've learned in terms of leadership that strong leaders try to surround themselves with people who influence them, who are better than them in other areas. You know that? You don't need someone like you. You've already got, you need people who are not like you. You know that? Exactly. Yeah, just help balance you out. Yep. Because I know I can chase rabbits, skinny rabbits often, and I got to get drawn back in. At the same time, vision, being able to have some foresight, see where we're going, what we're doing, to have some courage, Kenny, that all comes, and it's all typically anchored in your relatedness. I've learned this in sports psychology. I can tell you this. I really believe elite sports psychology is relationship psychology. I think talent is one thing. Angela Duckworth wrote a book not long ago called Grit, and she talks about how passion, perseverance are two key elements, that those are those intangibles that help separate people. You know that? And they've done a lot of research in what is it that separates people who go to med school, go to law school, who succeed in sports and more. And I think ultimately, all the way up, there's something inside of them that's really anchored in their faith. You look at giants of the faith, they're anchored in their relationship with Christ.
Life Imprints podcast, legacy stories that live beyond. Turn up the volume on today's riveting story with your host, Kenny Mauck, at kennymauck.com, and leave your life imprint with your legacy story.